Hello, I'm Matt Everett from BBC Six Music, and you're listening to BBC Sounds with a brand new and rather special interview with Paul McCartney, as Macca is rather unexpectedly releasing a brand new album in December called McCartney 3. So in 1970, as the Beatles were imploding, Paul released his first solo album, McCartney 1, writing, playing and recording everything himself. It was this raw and unadorned collection of songs that's come to be seen as the first indie album. We're kind of used to homemade lo-fi recordings from big artists, but this was the first, with one of the biggest. Likewise, McCartney 2 came out a decade later in 1980. Once again, Paul wrote, played and recorded everything himself, this time using early synthesizers, and he inadvertently created a hugely influential, pretty avant-garde electronic pop album. Now, McCartney 3 follows the same pattern. It's a collection of tracks written by Paul totally on his own in his studio during lockdown, with no release in mind, recorded just for the joy of music. And even though no music has been made available to the public, it's another spontaneous and very stripped-back record. And this is the first time he's ever spoken about it. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Matt?
I'm all right. Where in the world are you, Paul? Where am I speaking to you from?
I am in London.
Good.
Londinium, the famous capital of Rome.
It's really good to speak to you. I mean, this is all very unexpected. You're not very good at sitting on your hands, are you?
Well, I get these ideas, and I don't know, it keeps me busy.
Actually, I should ask, have you spent this time in lockdown out of the public eye growing like a huge McCartney 1 beard? Because it's an opportunity to do that here, because lots of people have.
No, what I do is I kind of grow it for a couple of weeks and then get fed up with it. It gets a bit itchy, so shave it off, and then go for another 2 or 3 weeks.
How have you been? How's your lockdown been, Paul?
It's been okay, actually, because I came back off holiday at the beginning of the year and got down to my farm in the countryside and happened to be locked down with my daughter Mary and her family. So that meant 4 of my grandkids. So I think for a lot of people, suddenly they're spending more time with their families than they thought they would. So that's been nice. Then I was able to go to work, because the idea was go to work only if you can't work at home. And I had to do a little bit of music in the studio, so that got me started kind of thing. So I did a bit of recording during that time, and then I'd come home in the evening and there'd be Mary and the family. It was all very lovely.
It sounds nice.
So, I mean, yeah, in fact, it wasn't that bad. And I say, I was a bit sort of loath to say that because I know a lot of people have had a terrible time. So, but no, mine wasn't too bad at all. In fact, so spent a lot of time with the grandkids, and that was nice.
Every night I just want to go out, get out of my bed.
Okay, well, look, this is McCartney 3, so let's do a bit of context. So if this is maybe the third part of the trilogy, then so McCartney 1 in 1970, that was the kind of start of the lo-fi DIY. Play and produce everything yourself. Have you always had a soft spot for that record?
Yeah, it happened just because I was spending a bit of time at home because suddenly I wasn't in the Beatles anymore. So you're a bit of a loose end, to say the least. But I had all my stuff. I had a drum kit, I had my bass, I had my guitar, had an amp. So I got hold of a 4-track recorder from EMI, which is the same machine that we'd used with the Beatles. So I just went real lo-fi, just plugged the microphone straight into the back, didn't have a mixing desk, and made some music. That was it.
Yeah, because you've said that was like an incredibly difficult time for you, but I guess doing that record, writing it, producing it, making it really raw, giving yourself kind of nowhere to hide, that must have helped. It must have been a good process to have gone through for you.
Yeah, I think, for me, like everyone, music is a good thing, a great thing. So, it really did help me through that period.
And it's now it's also regarded as a bit of a lo-fi classic, isn't it? It's seen as being like the start of that DIY ethos, that DIY sound for bands.
Yeah, it's funny, time lends an edge to all these things. Because at the time it was, supposed to be just a load of crap. Just me on my own, just doing, just indulging myself. which it kind of was, you know. But I liked that, and I thought, there's something here, you know. And I got messages from some people saying, "Oh, I love that. It's so sort of laid back, and it doesn't give a damn kind of thing." So yeah, people tend to sort of think better of it now.
In keeping with the kind of trilogy idea, what was your headspace going into McCartney 2 then? Because that was like the kind of end of Wings, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah, the McCartney 2 was more about I'd taken delivery of a synth, and I'd never really messed with one before, so I was taking advantage of all the things you can do with a synth. And then the other thing was a sequencer. Again, something I'd heard people use, but I'd never had a go at. So that's really was the basis of that album. You know, it was just me kind of locked away. It felt a bit crazy sometimes. I was to say that I felt a little bit like a crazy professor locked away in his laboratory. Because, you know, I mean, one track in particular was called, I think, Secret Friend. It was just 8 minutes long. It just happened to keep going for 8 minutes. You know, if you want to put some percussion on, like shakers, or you would just do a bit of it, and then the computer can do the 8 minutes. You know, if you wanted to just keep going. But in those days, I'm just standing around in this little empty room, going, kind of glancing at my watch and going, "Whoa, 7 minutes to go." Oh my God.
Oh dear. I mean, do you think you work differently if you're like recording like in a bathroom or recording in Abbey Road? Do you approach things differently, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think if you're just on your own, you can have an idea and then very quickly you can play it, or you can just, you know, whereas with a band, you've kind of got to explain it. They've got to get it. You've got to get it how it feels. Sometimes that's great. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's, you know, obviously live, that's the best. But, yeah, when you're just noodling around on your own, you just have a lot of freedom. And it's just something I've always enjoyed doing.
I mean, so for this album, so for McCartney 3, I mean, I guess as someone who's like everything, all your work, everything you play, everything you say is kind of scrutinised so much, to be doing some recordings and just thinking, maybe no one will hear this, that's got to be quite a joy, I guess.
Well, that was the great thing about the album. I didn't know I was making an album, you know, and that really makes a difference. Because I just went in and, as I say, I had this little bit of film music. The guy was making a film for me. He wanted a little bit of intro music and then a little bit of credits, a little instrumental. So I had to go and do that. And I thought, well, that's okay. That's serious. Now I can mess around. And so for the next 9 weeks, I was just messing around, thinking, it'd be good to finish this one up. Oh, I could do this one. Yeah, that'd be okay. And just going through them all and never suspecting for 1 second that this was going to be an album.
I mean, there's kind of songs from all over the shop, isn't there? Songs from kind of different points in time.
Most of it's new stuff. There are one or two that I hadn't finished, and because I was able to get in the studio, I thought, well, okay, wait a minute, what about that one? Let's have a look at that. And so you get it out and think, oh dear. And you'd try and figure out what was wrong with it, why you didn't like it. And in some cases, it was just the vocal or the words or something just didn't cut it. So you can strip it all down and go, okay, well, let's just make it a completely different song. And then when I'd done them all, I sort of look at them. I was going, I don't know, what am I going to do with this? Is this a new album or something? And then it suddenly hit me, this is McCartney 3. You've done it all yourself like the others. So this qualifies.
Yeah.
That's McCartney 3.
there's so much that's texturally so nice in there. There's kind of songs that come back in and there's sort of different bits and almost false endings and stuff. There is a real looseness to it that is really... It sounds great. It's a beautiful sounding record because it does sound very, very different.
Well, thanks, man. Well, that's lovely. Thank you for saying that.
I mean, even the vocals, it's very easy these days to auto-tune vocals or comp vocals from different bits. But, you know, the vocals sound raw. They sound really, really raw, don't they?
Thanks. I was trying to get them posh. So, you know...
I meant that in a good way.
I know. No, you know, because I wasn't really aiming at a proper record release, I was just, you know, having a go, thinking, yeah, that's okay, that's good, that's near enough. And so, yeah, I think that it has ended up being exactly what it is, which is, you know, me not really trying very hard, but except to have fun.
Did the pandemic did what we're all going through affect any of the writing, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. So a couple of the newer songs, there's one called Seize the Day, that had echoes of the pandemic kind of thing. You know, when the cold days come, we wish that we had seized the day kind of thing. Like, so that was just reminding myself and anyone listening that, you know, you better grab the good stuff and, you know, try and get on through the pandemic. But it certainly helped me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, how have you found the past 6 months personally? Because, I mean, I've found it really difficult to watch the news. I mean, there's a lot of positivity out there. Yeah. And there's a lot of hope, but there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of blame. How have you found it?
No, I'm like you. I hate it. You know when you turn on the news, the lead story is going to be how many people died. That's depressing after a while, you know. But, you know, in truth, what kind of saw me through a lot of this was I remembered that my parents, my mum and dad, Jim and Mary, were in World War II. They survived. They survived the bombing and the losing people left, right, and centre. And yet they came out of it with incredible spirit. And so us kids in Liverpool, we grew up with this really, you know, let's have a good time. Let's roll out the barrel, you know, with this great sort of wartime spirit that older people had because they'd had enough. And so I was brought up in a lot of that. So it's kind of good to draw on that and think, well, if they could do it, I can do it.
And there is this thing about, you know, as you say, music, making music heals. Sometimes it's not about the destination. You know, the destination is the journey. It's about writing it and recording it is the thing. That's the point of it, not necessarily the end single or whatever.
No, that's true. You know, I love it. I always say to people, well, do it for a hobby. If, you know, if they sacked me, I would, you know, I've always got my guitar kind of handy. And it's a friend, you know. It's you talk to a lot of guitar players or instrument players, and that's what they'll tell you, you know, is you kind of get a relationship with this inanimate object. It becomes very important. I mean, in the early days, we always used to, me and John used to sort of say it was like a psychiatrist. You know, you'd be feeling a bit down, and then you'd go off in a cupboard somewhere and start playing, and you'd work your way through it, and you'd feel better.
Yeah.
So it is really important.
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you love me, the way I love you.
Obviously, the kind of future of live concerts is really uncertain at the moment. I mean, have you thought about the possibility that, you know, you might not be able to play live again? Has that entered your mind as a fear?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, I look back at the last gig I did, which was at Dodger Stadium in LA, and we did have a very good night. And I must say, you know, I'm just sort of thinking, what if that's the last gig? But it would just be great, wouldn't it, just to be in a crowd and not worry and just be able to go crazy and listen to a live band or be the live band. I was imagining that the other day. Oh, you know, instead of doing the songs, you'd be just standing there going, this is great, isn't it? This is, come on, lovely, we're great, you know. That would be special, I must say. So fingers crossed.
Quick bit of housekeeping. How's the Let It Be film doing? Have you had a look at what Peter Jackson's been up to? How's it coming along?
Yeah, I have. I love it. I love it. You know, I said to him when he was going to trawl through all the footage, like about 56 hours or something. I said, "Oh God, it's going to be boring," because my memory of the film was that it was a very sad time and it was a little bit downbeat, the film. But he got back to me. He said, "No," he said, I'm looking at it. He said, "It's a laugh. You guys, it's just four guys working, and you can see you making up songs and George wondering about the lyrics of something and the way she moves, or me trying to figure out Get Back, or and he's shown me little bits and pieces of it, and it's great. I love it, I must say, because it's how it was. It just reminds me of, even though we had arguments like any family, that we loved each other, and it shows in the film. It's a very warm feeling. And it's amazing just being backstage with these people making this music that turned out to be good.
And the last question, are we going to get a McCartney 4 in 2030? Because I think you've set a precedent now.
I don't know. I think we just have to wait and see, won't we?